time. So it's good to, have this situation also.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I'm about to start the live streaming on YouTube as well. So
oh God, there's millions of people out there.
So we're good. So again, welcome to the oGoing Business Roundtable and Fireside Chat. Today is June 8th. I'm really excited to host this chat because it's a very important topic. A quick story about me. I'm Sanjay Dalal, the founder and CEO of oGoing, and we have been having this fireside chats online and offline. It started with face-to-face many years ago. I want to say 7-8 years back at the Sagar restaurant on MacArthur Boulevard on the Indian food, fine Indian cuisine, and we did that for a bunch, and then we did other restaurants. Then we went online. We still go back and do some of this, at restaurants as well. But I was just chatting with Stephanie earlier. I think online seems to reach out to a lot more audience members, especially because everybody doesn't have to travel, and we can still have a great conversation as we will have it today. And today's session is an important topic. It's about advance, if you may, of women in leadership roles, right? And definitely we'll talk about some of the challenges as well as opportunities which are ahead, for women. I think the whole topic of DEI is an important topic. A little history about me. So my grandmother, her name is Kapila. She passed away many years ago. Kapila Dalal, and she was the founder of, in her days, the Mahila Samaj, which is, women's association, the first of its kind in my home state in Gujarat, in Nadiad, which is where she grew up. And she was deeply moved back then by Kasturba Gandhi, which was, the wife of Mahatma Gandhi, and she led many protests in her days in the city of Nadiad. So that was, when I grew up, I used to hear about her role and what she had done for the community. So quite inspired to have her, as my grandmother, and all the things she did to help India become free, besides all the other leaders for sure. And then later on, my mother, Asha Dalal, and she was, in her days, she was actually very active in our community where we were growing up in Ahmedabad, or we call it Ahmedabad, Gujarat. There are two ways to say the same city name. And my mom used to be very active back then in the Lioness Club. Many of you may have heard about Rotary. There's another club for service called Lions Club. I don't know if Lions Clubs are as well known here in US, but in India they have been. So my mom actually was a president of the Lioness Club in Ahmedabad. And again, so this was kind of some of the upbringing I had, because she also was a local leader, and she would do this community events, mostly for, community service, and, a lot of poverty in India when we were growing up. It still is there, but, a lot of projects would be done to help the poor folks, and, the ones who are disadvantaged. And so I think between my grandmother and my mother, I felt, growing up, I really understood what it meant in some ways as to how they stepped outside, their, proverbial, box, if you may, and they did something much more for their communities. And I kind of understood also what it takes to create even movements, if you may, at local levels, right? It just took a lot of effort. I remember when she would host these meetings, and it'll be huge events, and there'll be like a few hundred people or maybe more at times. And I kind of understood the concept of teamwork at a very early age as to what it took, because I'm sure it wasn't just my mother doing this or my grandmother, and they used to have a whole team of folks helping them out. So I think, but then of course I moved to the US, and things have been quite different in that journey. But that was kind of a little background of my growing up. And so today, I mean, since I've been connected to Stephanie Paul here, and we're going to have a really great talk with her. And I mean, I knew about some of the things she has done. So if I may introduce her quickly, I mean, she takes great pride in coaching executives, sales teams, TEDx speakers. She does fundraisers, experts of all kinds, and ultimately she helps them become great communicators. But beyond that, she also has an approach called powerful, emotional, engaging presentations, and she has over 29 years of experience in entertainment as well as in today's world. I think what she does is more on the communication side. But many of you don't know that, but she has been an actress before, or even now, I don't know. I have to ask her that. She has worked in 10 international TV and film markets. She has been an improv stand-up. So there we go. I think if we do a face-to-face, I know who I'm going to call, as they say, right? For an improv. She has been a sketch comedian, director and producer for live events, stage and video shows, a writer and a public speaker. And she has had both the entertainment business knowledge as well as she has the keen ability to deliver the content with wit, wisdom, and humor. And she makes her training session a lot of fun. She always says there is no such thing as a boardroom. She wants to make it lively, spirited, and a connected room, if you may, when we do this face-to-face events. But Stephanie, the question for you, and I'm going to ask that first, and then we're going to do a quick roundtable because we want to introduce everybody who is here today. But the question for now, and until we get back into the real meat of the presentation, is you were born in New Zealand. You shared that with me, so thank you for doing that. And I did not know that, but you said that was the first country in the world to get the women's right to vote and be equal, if you may. And apparently it was 34 years before America did that. That's pretty amazing too. So can you share a little bit about that, right? Growing up in New Zealand, and do women in New Zealand actually, did they have more rights? Because now you're in the US and opportunities, if you may, compared to what you see here, right? So maybe I'll lead with that, then we'll do the roundtable, and then we'll come back to you after that.
Perfect. I just want to interject that my mother was also a lioness.
All right.
Yep. She was the president of her lioness company. What do you call it? I was saying company. It's like a chapter.
Yes.
And then eventually lions and lioness joined together and became unisex. They weren't separated. So she stayed in her Lions Club until almost until her death, actually. So she was very heavily involved. So yeah, and it is true. New Zealand was the very first country in the world to get the women's vote. It didn't go through the first time. I think they took about a decade, if I remember, to actually get women from the time they started, pitching the idea and concept to Parliament. Eventually got it. And it was actually a Scottish woman called Kate Shepherd. But New Zealand was a little bit like America. We had a lot of expats come out from Europe and England, and that's what built our country. Unlike Australia, that was built on convicts. Very different. And I didn't really see a massive difference between my parents. My father did earn more money than my mother, but they participated in the house chores and duties pretty much evenly. I didn't really see that dad was this way and mum was that way. I mean, dad didn't cook, but that was mainly because apparently I'm the youngest of four. When mum went into hospital to give birth to me, and dad brought the other kids in to visit her, they all asked her when she was coming home because dad was an awful cook. So, then he was like, well, I'm not going to cook anymore, so he didn't, that was the only reason why he didn't cook, because his ego was bruised. But other than that, they both gardened, they both did cleaning chores, they shared all that stuff. So it wasn't, I honestly cannot say today if there is equality in pay in New Zealand. I'm pretty sure there is. But I do know that women still pay more for their haircuts than men in New Zealand. And I've never understood that, because it actually takes longer to give a really good short haircut on a man than it does to give a woman's trim. So I don't get that concept.
Good point. Never thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, women's clothes are generally more expensive. I think the only industry in the world where women have always made more money than men is that, the sex industry. But so yeah, that was my growing up in New Zealand. Is I found it pretty equal, and we've had several women in leadership. I mean, our prime minister was a woman who just recently stepped down.
Yep.
So to me,
and she did a commendable job during the pandemic crisis. I mean, it was just amazing what New Zealand could do, actually.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of controversy around that, but she did, as a leader, she did a really great job. And I mean, we were actually the first country, I think, if not the first country to have a transgendered politician. So we've always been quite forward in that way of thinking. I never felt that as a woman I couldn't speak up, I couldn't voice my opinion, I couldn't. I mean, I always joke that everybody's entitled to my opinion. But I didn't grow up in a place where I felt that men were different from me other than their gender. I didn't feel that I couldn't speak out, or and honestly, I recently was asked in a podcast about my role as a leader, and we sort of recounting back my childhood, and I'm like, I've kind of been in leadership positions a lot in all my life. I was a dancer for many years, and I won a lot of choreographic competitions, and the dean of my year in high school told the drama teacher they were looking for someone to choreograph the high school plays, and I was like 14, and they told me that I could do it. So I was essentially, I've been choreographing and leading productions and things like that since I was pretty young. I was coaching by the time I was 14. I used to do gymnastics as well as dancing and drama and things like that. And my mother was like, you got to give up something. And I didn't want to completely give it up. So I coached it instead. And then by the time I was 16, I was actually teaching an adult dance class at my performing arts school.
Yep.
And they used to always complain that the subs sucked because they only used to do exercises with them instead of actually create dances and things like that. So, the first time I produced a live event was for, I don't know if you know the fragrance CK1, Calvin Klein. I produced the launch event in New Zealand at the age of 21 for a huge advertising agency. They didn't have a big budget. They came to my agency, and I was working there as an agent. And they knew my background, and I was also training a lot of our talent. And they were like, you can do this. And I'm like, no, I can't. I've never produced or directed a thing like on this scale. I mean, it was the launch of a huge fragrance. And I pulled it off. So, excuse me, I'm trying to get over a cold.
No,
so it's a good thing we're not in live in person. But so I've kind of always been in leadership roles. I've always been coaching. I've always been training. So when I kind of came out of the entertainment industry, it was a natural progression for me to move into sort of coaching and training and go down the road that I am at now, which originally started with speakers and presenters. I was fortunate enough to be around the TED community for about 4 years. I even produced TEDx Mission Viejo back in 2016, and I got to go to Iran in 2015, which was super cool because everybody was like, don't go to Iran, and I was like, why, and they're like, it's super dangerous, and I was like, I may never ever get this opportunity ever again. I'm going to Iran. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. And I joked with people, and they're like, it's going to be dangerous. I'm fine. I've got about 200 people praying around the world for me right now because no one wanted me to go, including my mother. Coached in that format. And then I wanted to get more into leadership because I started working in the biotech world, helping startups raise money through their storytelling and their engagement with an audience and all that kind of stuff. And I got certified in a bunch of psychological and behavioral assessments, EQ, things like that, that I use now as a foundational tool. And some of the executive leadership teams that I was working with were like, hey, can you bring this in and do trainings? And I was like, sure. And then I got certified in leadership, and I'm a certified life coach and things like that. So it was sort of a natural progression. And then people, I'd have CEOs or COOs say, we've got this great woman in a director role. Could you work with her? and on leadership. And I was like, sure. And so that it transitioned to that. And then a lot of the women that I was working with one-to-one kind of would complain that they didn't have any support. A lot of the people that I work with are in very male-driven industries, a lot of STEM, biotech, technology type industries. I've got one client right now who works, she's got an engineering degree and she sort of works in manufacturing, so slightly different industry, but still male-driven. And often the complaint was, some of their female leaders who were maybe higher than them or in a C-suite position weren't terribly supportive of women at their level. And then they were sort of surrounded by men. So they asked me to, do something about that. And so I started a woman in leadership mastermind, so that women could come together and really support each other. And I've tried really hard to work with other women who are like me, who are really trying to support women in their growth and their leadership, because traditionally women have had to sort of fight. And it's very common that people say, women in leadership roles behave like men. Because they've had to behave like men or dress like men or whatever. I know in the 80s, they all wore these box suits type thing, to be in those roles. And I'm of a firm belief that that's not the way that women should lead. Women should lead with their own gender. And there's also that mentality around when women are direct or are strong, well, then they're kind of being, excuse the expression, bitchy. And that's not cool either, because how are we supposed to step into our true gender without our strength? When it's perceived as something like that. So I've always found that humor has helped me not come across that way. And not everybody has a stand-up or an improv background. I understand that. But I think there's 4 things that I've discovered through the growth journey and development of me as a trainer and a coach, is that, and this is biological, because I've done a lot of study around neuroscience and how way we communicate and what we need biologically, is that if we have transparency, if we have sincerity, if we have compassion and we have humor, those 4 things can engage somebody's biology very quickly. And I think women do that well, generally.
Discuss that for sure. What I want to do quickly, Stephanie, is do the roundtable here, so we get to know who is attending today. So you also get to meet them.
Cool.
And let's let me just share the screen just quickly, as a way to start off this event. So it is a Women in Leadership Business Roundtable and Fireside Chat, with Stephanie Paul. And, we're going to get into a lot of important topics besides what you see here. And I'm your host for the day. And I want to share this quick quote from a very important leader that we had. She passed away a couple of years ago, but, she definitely changed, the Supreme Court, if you may, and the justice, in terms of, what it means, for Americans and women in particular. And I think this is a very powerful quote she shared. This is none other than Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court judge. And she said, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And, when I look at you, Stephanie, and I look at some of the women leaders who are attending today, I think there's something to be said, right? So, of course, we want to create equity. We want to create, a culture of that. Where women are equal, if you may, in terms of, without the biases that we normally find. But I think this quote is very poignant in the sense that, you got to lead others where people join you. And, a quick segue on oGoing and what we do here in the community. This journey started back in late 2009, early 2010. We are a business community, made for purposeful business owners, local, small, diverse, growing businesses. We have kept it small. We have kept it authentic. You mentioned the word authentic earlier. We have, grown to over 125,000 members now all over the world. But the core set of members are still here in California and the US. Everybody's welcome to join our community. You just go to oGoing.net. Besides all these amazing panels that we do, including Fireside Chats and Roundtables, it's a great online platform to boost your business network, to boost your website traffic, as well as to boost your social media and SEO. SEO is the ability for search engines to, like Google and Bing and all, to find you online so that your website and your voice is heard by your customers, right, ahead of your competition. So again, join oGoing. It'll just take you 5 minutes, and would love for everybody here to participate and also be part of this community. So what I want to do is do the roundtable. This is actually a photo from some of the physical roundtables and chats we do organize from time to time. I think I'm planning to get back into this sometime after summer. So look forward for announcements on that, and we'll get back to that. But what I want to do now is actually go ahead and introduce the folks who are here today. And let's start with Niharika. Niharika, welcome to the oGoing Fireside Chat. Please go ahead and share and make it quick, like 30 seconds to a minute.
Sure.
Because we do want to get to the main content with Stephanie, but go ahead and introduce yourself, Niharika. Go ahead.
Sure. Sanjay, thanks for having me. And Stephanie, I'm looking forward to your insights today and really excited that you come from a cricket playing nation.
Yes.
So I'll quickly, I don't know whether you know, but there will be World Cup of T20 cricket in the USA next year.
That's
That's happening. So yeah, now I started my career as the only woman in a switchboard manufacturing unit. That was 25 years ago. And I have been in technology, and I'm really passionate about getting women into technology. And I have just authored this, it's here. I've just authored this book. It's a visual guide to cybersecurity and compliance for business leaders. So that's about me. Thanks again.
That would be an awesome topic to discuss later on, Niharika. That's awesome. Congrats again on the launch of the book. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's also introduce Verlaine Crawford. Dr. Verlaine, go ahead. She has been our speaker as well. Go ahead, please.
Well, it's really great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm really happy to be here. I'm a transformational coach and author of 5 books and a speaker. And I just finished my book, which I don't have a picture of up here, of The Power of Wholeness. It is discover a more fulfilling, successful, and rewarding life. And the reason I'm hesitating on it, because I keep changing the subtitle, but it is there now. It's interesting. My mom was a lioness. She encouraged me that I could do anything. I never felt that difference between mom and dad like you, Stephanie. It was, they both worked, they both were incredible. And mom always said to me, you can do anything. And as a child, probably 10, 11 years old, I would organize business, what would you be like in the garage where every kid had their own business. Where I got that idea, I don't know. But later I became head of a chamber of commerce. And of course I was doing that kind of thing, and circuses. So I was always organizing things also. And then one of the culmination of my career in marketing was to be the first woman vice president of a high-tech company in Silicon Valley. And then another one hired me to also do that. But I coached in and did all kinds of programs in corporations like you, Stephanie, and it's a very rewarding thing to do. And my book is really, this first one is going to be really about working with yourself and individually, because I believe that's where it starts, that we have to integrate our different parts of our being. And then I've also done that in corporations and in community. And so the next book will be about doing the same thing in business. But I'm very happy about what you are accomplishing. It's great.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford. I appreciate you joining and supporting us. Really appreciate it. Thank you. We have Ashu here, Ashu Verma. Ashu, go ahead, please.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Ashu Verma. I'm an executive recruiter. Yesterday, I was calculating. I've been doing this since 2003. Long time. But what was interesting, as you were all mentioning, and Pankaj mentioned, he was the only male in the room, although Sanjay, we do count you. I still remember my very first job after my MBA. I started in a company called Mastech as a salesperson. They had me start off as a salesperson, and I used to be among a group of 40, the only female in the room. which was great because you got all the recognition, everybody knew if you were missing, but which was also bad because you couldn't sneak out and do something. So, but yes, so I'm an executive recruiter, mainly work with technology, media and entertainment, and consumer goods and services companies, hiring director levels and above. And great to learn some more as we attend this session from Stephanie.
Absolutely, Ashu. Again, thank you for joining and appreciate your support. Thank you.
Sure.
We have Anna Almquist. I'm hoping I'm saying your name correctly. Anna, go ahead. Anna, are you there? Okay, we'll get back to her. Cindy, go ahead. Cindy Zulsdorf. Cindy, how are you?
Hey, Sanjay. Nice to see
Welcome
you. Good to
back.
see everybody.
Yes.
I'm Cindy Zulsdorf, and I have a company. We do marketing and marketing automation for companies that are overwhelmed and they want their marketing to start a sales conversation. I spent 20 years selling equipment to TV stations and taking the equipment in and setting it up and showing it to engineers. And then I started a company sort of serving my former self, and it's really fun. I get to help people get their message out and get more sales, and super fun. Love it. Did you work? Oh, sorry.
Well, go ahead. I said you're an author as well. I see your books behind.
I do. Yes, I took the 7 things we do the most for clients and wrote them down because everyone's like, "What marketing should I do? What works?" I'm like, "Here, I write it down for you. I lay it out for you here." So I got that. I wanted to ask, Ashu, Mastech, is it a video company that you worked with named Mastech, or is that maybe a common company name? I know.
No, it is not the video company.
Okay.
Mastech is the company from India. They were a software systems integration company.
Got you. We work all with high-tech companies.
They still are that, actually.
There's a Mastech. Anyway, thank you for telling me. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So we also, joining us today is also Kumu Gupta. Kumu, are you online? Kumu is actually, she's out in the East Coast. And Kumu, can you hear us? Kumu, hello. Okay. You can unmute your mic. Kumu, go ahead. Kumu, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
You can hear me now?
Yes, Kumu, yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah, hi. Yes, so as you said, I'm in Boston. I'm on the East Coast, and I'm a high-tech professional and entrepreneur. Spent many years in Silicon Valley as a semiconductor person, starting from engineering and moving into marketing and sales and product management kind of roles. And outside of work, I have other interests. I like to help people, so I branched out into that for many years, volunteering my time. And just last year, I launched a new initiative called Global Peace Secretariat, and I was blown away when I got nominated for the 2023 Nobel Peace Prize for my work.
Yes, so Kumu, we're going to definitely do a panel about that with you. I mean, it's just fascinating that you have joined us and you're sharing the story. So thank you again. And we're going to do more with Kumu in the future. So Kumu, thank you. Yes. We have Rachel. Rachel, is it Shoot or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Rachel Shute. I'm an information security consultant. I am certified and focused in areas of governance and risk as it applies to IT and cybersecurity. And I've contributed on those topics to a nonprofit called ISACA and developing their standards. I also enjoy volunteering my time to the community and helping open doors for other women and minorities. So glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you,
Rachel, for joining. Really appreciate it. We have Sonnal Ladvva. She's our local from Irvine. Sonnal, go ahead.
Hi, Sanjay. Thank you very much. And hi, Stephanie. I live in Orange County, as Sanjay rightly said, and thank you for having me here. It's usually been it's really been good whenever I can get a chance to join oGoing. So a little about myself, but just a comment. I was observing everyone. Every woman who introduced herself went, or rather most of them, went back to their connection with their moms and how, if anything, they're an extension. So if your mom was a lioness, you too are in a great leadership role. So which goes to show how influential and how important moms are. And so it was intriguing because I actually had two different businesses. One is I'm a licensed psychotherapist as well as a family and a divorce mediator, and I run a private practice under the name of Open Dialogues. And my other business is a company called Toki, which I co-run with my husband. It's a patented toothbrush with an attached sliding tongue scraper. And in both the roles, obviously, I am leading. Having said that, with a lot of humility, I do want to say that as easy as it sounds, or it comes to a lot of us over here leading, I see a lot of very, very qualified women who are not able to do so because a lot of cultural baggage. So a lot depends on how you are brought up and what you see. And I say this to my couples because my focus is couples therapy, and divorce obviously is between the two people. But I say it to them often is that we become our parents in our relationship. And so when you complain about each other and when you have issues with each other, go back into your own past and see who your spouse resembles. Is he more like your mom or is he more like your dad? Because chances are that's the reason you selected him. And so, but thank you so much. So that's just a little about myself. And I'm really looking forward to this talk, Stephanie, and hoping to get some wisdom nuggets from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonnal, for joining and supporting oGoing. Really appreciate it. We have Sukaina. Sukaina, is it Alarakio? Sukaina?
Yes, and I apologize if you hear any background noise. I'm at my lunch hour gym workout, trying to get a workout going. That's okay. I am in transition. I would like to transition from my past roles in the San Diego biotech startup and venture community on to an M&A consulting role, where I can have the opportunity of having large companies with some earlier startups, as potential strategic partnerships, collaborations, acquisitions. So either a corporate dev role or an M&A role. So I'm in transition right now. And it's wonderful to meet you all. Thank you. Currently located in Aliso Viejo.
Okay.
I recently moved. Yes.
Awesome. Great. So you're an OC for now. That's awesome. Okay.
All right. Thank
you. Also connect on LinkedIn as well. And if you need some help, we can definitely get some intros going for you as well. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Right. And we have my sister has joined actually from up in Bay Area, Situ Radia. Situ, well, I call her Situ Ben. How are you? Welcome. Are you able to talk? Okay, I guess she has. Okay, go ahead, Situ.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Good, welcome.
Yeah, good to ask me to join. That is nice of you. I am in the Bay Area. I used to be, I'm still an engineer, but I have given up work when I was with the kids, and I'm now looking for my own passion, what to pursue, and I haven't figured that out yet. So I'm still trying to going through that phase. I have now, instead of the kids, I have a nice dog, which helps me out, and he's fun to be around. And I always think that it is so much of a reminder of your kids when you have a dog, because they all grew up together. So now I'm still trying to go meet with my parents and do some activities with them because they are back home in India. So I'm trying to just think that they are above 80. So it's time for me to now go there and spend some time and have fun with them. So that is my objective for the next couple of months. And it is very nice meeting with all of you, or at least I'm enjoying the talk which is going on. And it is very nice that you all have accomplished so much. And I'll be just joining the talk further, and I'll be listening to you guys. And if I want to reach out to any of you, I'll definitely do that later on. Thank you, Sanjay, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Situban, for joining us. Appreciate it. Yep. And of course, we have Pankaj, Daya, Pankaj, go ahead, the two men here. Pankaj.
Good afternoon, or I don't know, wherever you are, good day. This is Pankaj, and I am in the investment business. My firm is an RIA, and my focus is retirement plans for businesses. In the US, the most common one is called a 401k, but that's just a type of plan. So where I assist the owners or the business owners are to, one is the plan design, two is how to implement the plan, and three, how to monitor it on a regular basis. I'm based in Palmdale, but I do work with clients all over California and where I'm from in New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj, and can't recommend enough about what Pankaj does. Very authentic, very honest business owner, and in what he does, especially for helping you with your retirement, both as a business owner as well as professionally. So do reach out to him. And now let's go back to our chief guest of honor, Stephanie Paul. Stephanie, are we back? Let's go and start our conversation. And I'm going to start off with a question for her. And again, everybody will be given an opportunity to ask her questions as well, because I don't want to be doing all of this on my own. But I think the biggest one is, what are some of the real issues you are seeing today with some of the female leaders, both aspiring and current, right? I mean, what are they facing, and what are they trying to do, and how are you helping them to overcome some of this? So let's just get to the bottom of some of this, Stephanie.
Yeah, sure. It's a couple of your members mentioned that they'd written books. I also have written a book. It's called Unlock the Magic of Story. And the reason why I tell you that is because the quote that I always write in it when I sign it is, the most powerful story you'll ever tell is the one between your ears. And most people think of storytelling and they think of, like Once Upon a Time, blah, 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 or nonfiction stories. And it's not. Stories to me is any form of communication, right? Because it's a belief system. It's a mindset. And our brains are set up to try and keep us safe and stay away from risk, right? So anything that seems or feels risky simply just means something outside your comfort zone. It could be something really good for you, but it's hard to go there because you're used to the bad habit. Does that make sense? So even with some of the men that I've worked with in leadership, there's actually the topic that we're talking about in our next mastermind next month is the imposter syndrome topic. And everybody in leadership at some point, I'm sitting outside and there's a fly buzzing around my head. So I'm doing this, but it may look a little weird to you, but I'm just trying to get rid of the fly. Is we have this imposter syndrome thing. And one of the things that I always talk about with all my clients is one of the best spaces and places to be is curious. And constantly questioning our own belief systems, questioning our actions, questioning others for why they're doing what they're doing, because our brains are pretty prehistoric. I mean, we've got this amazing technology and we've got all these wonderful things that we do, but biologically, we really haven't got that far in the last 200,000 years. So if you look at any form of communication from that concept, it sort of sets us a little bit free from all the complicated stuff that happens at work or in leadership roles and things like that, because we have to deal with a reptilian brain and then a mammalian brain before we get to logic and reason and our neocortex, which is all that where language comes from and things like that. So half the problems that I think we deal with really are emotionally based, because our limbic system gets control of, our logic and reason and can sometimes hijack our brains. So I really work consistently hard in that space and in that place with my clients, especially the ones who are in male-driven industries, because they're constantly, well, how I'm going to do this because I'm dealing with a bunch of men. And I'm like, ask questions. We work really hard on coming up with really great questions that dig into information. And so I coach them to become better coaches, because we as people in general need to teach other people how to treat us, right? We need to teach other people how to behave around us. We need to teach other people what's acceptable. We have to create our own boundaries. And I think that's super key when it comes to leadership. So that's something that I really drill down on, with the women that I work with in leadership, is like, what are the questions, and what are the things? And I find a lot of my gals, they're afraid of negotiation, or they've never really been taught what they can negotiate for. And I read a statistic somewhere, and this is like across the board, that most people at the end of their careers will leave about $500,000 on the table because they never, because they won't negotiate themselves to where they could be. And I had one client once who, she was going up for a new job, and I said to her, what do you want? And she goes, well, I just really want to stay virtual. I'm like, come on, are you serious? That's all you're going to go into the negotiation room with? And I literally gave her a list of stuff to look at. She goes, really? I can ask for this? I said, and I told her, the number that you want, go in 50% higher. And she's like, you've got to be killing me. And I'm like, no, they will come down with you, but then you'll probably end up getting pretty close to what you want. And every single one of my clients that I help negotiate a new role, or when they get a raise or something like that, they're always flabbergasted at the list of stuff that I give them to ask for or to look at. And they're like, I can really ask for that. And then they always come back and they're like, oh my God, they gave it to me. And I'm like, of course they did, because you're valuable. And I can see it just by the way that they're offering you that role or whatever it is if you're at the negotiation table, they want you. So you're already in a positive position. And I think women have a different mindset and belief system traditionally from men. It's like they'll sort of take a little bit of a back seat on things like that. And it's super exciting to watch women really learn how to negotiate for themselves and get better things than they ever imagined in their roles or, their careers. So that's one of the things some of the things that I work on, if there's any questions around that.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. So you're saying curiosity is, of course, the key. But is it a different type of curiosity? I mean, I guess the reason I ask is, of course, curiosity is the way to creativity, is the way to innovation. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes in a business world, I mean, how do you share that, right? Whereas it doesn't come at it as if you're questioning,
everything.
It comes at it as if you are really trying to find solutions, right? Because there's always that nature that comes in play. And we have some hands raised here, so we're going to get to both Kumu and Sonnal right after this. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So curiosity for me sort of really comes down to not just asking questions, but also really beginning to understand human behavior. There's a psychology aspect to it. And we have over 4,000 human behaviors, and some of them are micro expressions, and people forget to listen with their eyes. Your limbic system, that mammalian brain that I talked about, reads behavior really, really well. But your neocortex will get involved and tell you that, oh, yeah, it's not what I saw. I didn't see that. What? So there's this little bit of a struggle with our brains going on. So I try to get people to become better at reading behaviors and listening for a tone of voice and things like that. Because when you become really good at reading behaviors, you can instinctually almost ask the right question. You kind of know where to go with what's happening in the room. So it's not just about asking a question per se. I mean, I usually train my clients or coach them to come up with a set of questions that's really helpful for the scenario or for general issues that come up across the board, to, you know, keep it by their computer to remind them to go to those questions when something gets a little weird or off or heated or whatever that is. But then also to read the behaviors of people and how they respond and how they react. You know, the way we communicate there's a massive percentage of non-verbal in communication. And those non-verbals will often tell you exactly what you want to know. And so you can ask intelligent, curious questions around the non-verbals that you see to see where that person is. You know, when people are misbehaving or behaving badly, it comes from a place of pain and fear. It doesn't come from like, oh, they're just being a difficult person. There's usually an emotional trigger underneath that, you know. So that's why I say curiosity is really important, because when we approach, again, at the top of the conversation, I said compassion, sincerity, transparency, and humor, and people feel that they're in a safe place, they can open up. And I think great leaders show their vulnerability and allow vulnerability. You know, vulnerability is a strength for me. It's not a weakness. And I'm not talking about breaking down and just losing the plot and like, you know, in tears and things like that. But being able to say, I don't have all the answers, especially after COVID. I mean, come on, you know, I don't have all the answers. I need your input. Let's get curious around this issue, this problem, and find it together. I think great leaders are people that should be able to hold space for the team. And so that the team can come together and, you know, I'm running the show business, you know, I'm the boss type thing.
Yeah.
It's way of the dodo. I mean, if you're running your business that way, like, good luck.
Yeah, understood. I know Kumu had to leave, but Kumu, you had a pressing question, so I'm going to honor that for now. Go ahead, Kumu. Kumu, are you still there? You can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get Stephanie's contact information, and also I want to ask her a question. That do you personally know Nicole Kidman, since you're from the same part of the world?
She's from Australia, and there's like 28,000 Australians. No, a million, sorry, 28 million Australians. A couple of zeros left off that number. No, I do not know Nicole Kidman personally, but I have worked with Joel Epstein, which he's kind of a big star out of Australia right now.
Yep.
So how do we contact you?
Here, I'll
put the contact. Kumu, I'll get on that. So I'll share her contacts.
There we
after. Oh, no worries there. Yeah.
Oh no, I gave my email to somebody personally instead of everybody, but.
Okay. Sonnal, did you have a pressing question? Sonnal, I see your raise hand. Go ahead.
I don't know about the pressing part of it. I just had a question.
Go ahead.
That you talked about women not being good at negotiating, and you made a comment that because women don't value themselves, they don't know their value. Have you ever been able to peel off the onion over there and find out where that comes from, that they don't value themselves?
That's a really, really good question. And I would be theorizing to answer that, you know, because of, you know, I haven't dove into the research around that. I think can I say from experience with a woman that I've worked with, that I've helped negotiate, is that I think they're so focused on the team and the job and being a good mom and all that kind of stuff, that at the end of the day, sometimes they forget to focus on themselves and give back to themselves. Because women generally, nurture, nature, mother, you know, inherent, not everybody's like that, but I think it comes from that place. Because 9 times out of 10, I often get really? I can ask for that? Do you think that'll be okay? Of course you can have that, you know, like why not? Whereas men generally ask for too much, and they don't have quite the value that they're asking for. And I'm just saying there's statistics out there to prove, you know, like to support that. But I think, and it's not always cultural. I mean, I've seen it across cultures with just women in general. And So I'm not 100% sure, but one of the things that I always say about my Woman in Leadership Mastermind is it's a spa day for your mind and your career. Give it to yourself, so because women don't network as much as men. Women don't take that extra time to support themselves and connect, and get that feedback or that help or that coaching or whatever it is. Generally, I'm generalizing, and they just kind of go, okay, well, I got that, so that's good. When they don't realize they could have had this as well as that. So I think it just comes down to, generally we happen to be more givers, and so we're often taking care of everybody else and we forget to take care of ourselves.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to add.
Yeah, Verlaine.
Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things I've noted in the work that I've done is that we are not just one person inside of ourselves. There's many different subpersonalities, many different parts of ourselves. So a part of ourselves might value, but there's another part that doesn't. And the reason is because you've come up through the years having information come to you that somehow you're not as good as you need to be. And so you've got all these different ideas within yourself about who you are. And so part of it is really looking at that. What's the advantage of not thinking you're as valuable as you would like to be? So there's a part that says, yeah, I'm a valuable person. The other part says, no, there's these reasons that I'm keeping you from thinking you are not valuable. And some of them could be as silly as, well, I don't want to show off. I think I should be, kind of in the background. There's so many things that we learn over our lifetime that set up a pattern like that. But I also wanted to add that it is fascinating that if you go into a meeting and change your own mind and you say to yourself, I am one of the most valuable people there could possibly be in this room today to negotiate. And and then kind of turn around. This woman is really valuable. I really want to hire her at whatever price she wants. Guess what you're doing? You're planting those words into the mind of the person that you're talking to. You can do it with your husband or boyfriend. You can do it with kids. You change it. And I did this once. I had heard about it and I thought, well, I'm going to do it. I have a new client possible here. And so I'm sitting there and I'm going, this lady's really great. I think I'd really like to work with her. She fills all the areas that I need done. And you know what? He said the exact words. I mean, it was so incredible. And so what are we doing? We don't realize that we are feeding our way of thinking to the other person. And they are reacting to it. And just like you said, this wonderful, every person should take classes in body language, as you're mentioning, because it's just so important and how you set up rapport. This is part of neurolinguistic programming where the person in front of you is leaning on their hand like this, and you go and you follow it. Not obviously, but you just kind of follow it, or you might do it like this. And then they sit up and then you sit up. And it's like all of this, we are such mimics of each other. And when you're dealing with a team, the same thing, that what you're thinking, what you program into your mind, they will start thinking.
It's called mirror neurons. I talk about it in my book, and there's more and more research coming out around it. But we have mirror neurons, and the most contagious behavior we have is laughter. And that laughter actually releases more mirror neurons, than any other behavior that we have, which is why laughter is so awesome. And I'm a certified laughter yoga leader, and that originally came from India. Mirror neurons are huge. And there's a big section in the book about that, because when people truly understand the power of your energy and your emotions and what you bring to the table biologically and how it actually affects other people, it's huge. I mean, it's a big component to how we communicate, how we lead, and how we think about ourselves with our mindset and our belief system. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. And, the more you learn about it, anything you can study about this kind of interaction and what it has to do with you internally, with my book, what you're doing is you're bringing those parts together that are, one says, well, there's a lot of advantages of thinking great about myself. And the other one says, well, I've got to kind of keep you back in the background. You know, it's a nice way to be. And that's not just women. It's also men. They also don't value themselves the way they should. And so think about it that way. What are the advantages of not getting paid enough money? What are the advantages of getting fired? What are the advantages of setting up a new business? I mean, it's all, if you start looking at life that way, it shifts your whole belief system. It really does.
That's
for me.
That's definitely a great segue. I mean, Stephanie, you talked a little bit about laughter, and you are a certified yogi, if you may, or yogini. Everybody yogini for a lady. But I mean, talk about humor. I mean, it's one of those traits which is quite underrated. We don't know where to draw the damn line, you know, as to what is correct humor and what is not, right? There is all that going on, right, in this world of cancel culture and everything else, and for probably some of it for the right reasons, whatever it is, right? But the point is, I'm a big fan of humor, but lately it's kind of like you have to be a little careful on what is considered appropriate humor and what's not, and what to say and when to say it. So how, I mean, and it's a big part of working together in teams and all that. I mean, a great leader is someone who is fun and they make people laugh, and, you know, even though you work hard, but, you know, you play hard and you still have, you know, you still enjoy what you do. So how do you inject humor into this environment, and especially from a woman's perspective, if you do that, are you considered good, or what are some thoughts that people may have, right? I mean, biases, if you may. Sorry.
So I like to go back to the science when I talk about these kind of things, so that people really understand why and how it's so important. Yeah. So there's a lot of research around laughter based in animals, is in panting. So when, you know, chimpanzees, dogs, things like that, when they pant, it's a form of laughter. And so play is incredibly important for our brains, and it's pre-wired into our systems. So when we start laughing about the age of 2 months, there's been studies done around laughter in regards to, it's not a taught behavior, it's actually an innate behavior that just starts happening. And so babies start doing it, and they even did studies around babies who were deaf, blind, and didn't have a lot of sensation. They even started laughing around the age of 2 months. So we know that it's just something that is biologically built into us, into our system. And so you don't necessarily have to think of like telling jokes or being humorous or whatever, because not everybody's great at that. However, play is something that you can bring into businesses. Play is something that we can do. We can have, you know, what do they call it? Icebreakers and things like that, which are always fun. We can have commonalities in storytelling. Humor, I mean, stand-up comedy is based generally around negative things, but 86% of what we laugh at has nothing to do with funny stuff. It's just common things that happen throughout the day, or you might catch someone doing something a little silly, or their behavior, or they like catch them. What all that kind of stuff is, that's what makes us laugh. So in laughter, when we laugh, we release I think it's like 11 chemicals, you know, some things like serotonin, dopamine, all those things that make us feel good. To the point where I actually did a laughter yoga exercise with a woman. She was a little bit skeptical about the whole thing. And I said to her, are you cool if we do an exercise together, but I'd have to touch you? And she's like, that's totally fine. And so I said to her, this is a really easy exercise to do if you can get people to do it. As I said to her, just close your eyes and check in how you feel. How do you feel right now? Are you tired? Are you agitated? Are you grumpy? Are you happy? Whatever it is, just tell me, just give your body a quick scan. And she's like, okay, whatever. So and then I said to her, okay, now we're going to hold each other, and somebody else is going to time it for a minute. We held each other, we lay our heads on each other's shoulders, and we literally hugged and laughed for a minute nonstop. And then when we broke, I said to her, how do you feel? And she goes, oh my God, I feel euphoric. She goes, I feel high. That's what laughter actually does to us. Laughter, and I can't remember the name of the chemical in the brain, but it's one of the chemicals that's released when we laugh. So when we have an accident, when we have a trauma, right, the same chemical is released and it makes us alert, and it makes us with that memory go, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do that again. But that same chemical comes out with laughter, and you can actually shift those traumas or the feelings around those traumas when you bring that same chemical out and you laugh. So the reason why play is so incredibly important in the workplace is because it changes the chemicals in our body, because emotions are just chemicals in our body. That's all they are. That's what actors do. Actors create great emotions that we believe in, our mirror neurons connect to, because they're really good at using their emotions as tools. So they can bring them up and take them down. And any human being can learn that. But most people are like, oh, I'm not an actor, I can't learn that. But you actually can. Just like any other skill, or like leadership is a taught thing. It's not something that everybody's born with out of the gate. Some people are better at it than others, but good leadership skills are taught and trained. So I don't want to hang on the humor thing so much as the play. Play is really important. To be able to laugh at ourselves, to be able to laugh at mistakes and look at mistakes as a learning exercise. Okay, what can we learn from this? So shifting the mindset around everything has to be serious, because I personally think that we're born phenomenal storytellers. Children start telling stories, at the age of about 2, and the more plausible those stories or lies, the more likely they are to become, great, successful adults, because of the brain function and the way their brains are developing. So at some point, I haven't done the research around this, but I'd love to get a grant. At some point, we get told stop telling stories, right, between the age of like 2 and sort of 6. And then we're like only allowed to tell the truth, which is the data and the facts, right, which is what we learn at school, knowledge. However, I've got one of my human behavior expert friends that I had a conversation with at the Human Hacking Conference a few years ago, where he was like, well, no, the truth is data and their facts. And then the truth is just data and facts wrapped in story, because that's what your brain will remember. That's what your brain will choose, is that story over just the boring data and the facts, because it sounds more plausible.
Excellent. Excellent points. Excellent points. Any questions for Stephanie? I know we're closing in on the hour. It's already 1:03. So we'll take one more question from the audience. Anyone else has a question?
I'll just ask, is there any resistance to the play that you've experienced in the corporation these days?
No, I think in general, most people want to do it. They'll participate in trainings and they'll participate in whatever that is, but it's up to the leadership. It's that old saying, you're as strong as your leader. I'm in the process of building out a training for a company right now for their client success team. It's about 40 members in that team. And I had all the executives, because the senior director and the VP want to hire me, but there was 3 guys underneath them that didn't know me. And so we had to have a sort of like an executive meeting. And they were like, well, how is this going to work? We've got this training coming. And I said, accountability. Your leadership has to be accountable for this training. Your leadership has to follow through with what we're learning. Your leadership has to mimic and exercise everything that they learn. And if they don't, you're going to waste a ton of money with me. And I said that out of the gate, because I don't want to do seagull training. I want the stuff, because the stuff that I teach works. If you use the tools. If the leadership do not practice and act it out. I mean, I've got a client who is, she did her dissertation on safety and like this whole thing about, it was an implementation in an electrical company for health and safety. And they had to do these exercises and stretching to stop the lineman or the journeyman getting injured on the job. And her whole dissertation for her doctorate was around this. And she said most of the data showed that when the leadership didn't participate in the exercise, when the leadership didn't lead the exercise, none of it happened. But when the leadership did lead the exercises, when the leadership did get involved, and when the leadership acted in the words and they were congruent with the rules and the regulations or the play or whatever you want to call it, the study she did showed that they saved money, they got less injuries, that people were better exercise, that they would take these exercises home to their family and teach it to their wives and their children, and it became a community-based thing. So
Wonderful. Yeah.
from a leadership perspective, you must implement wherever you spend training and whatever, you're going to spend money on training, you must implement all the way down top to bottom, you know, whatever that is that you want to shift.
Yeah, that's great.
So I have one last question. And by the way, did I miss anyone who has joined on the roundtable? I see Saroj here. Saroj, did I miss you earlier? My apologies. Saroj?
No problem. I'm here. I've been listening.
Okay. Go and introduce yourself. My apologies. I didn't see your name earlier. So.
Nothing great.
Okay.
I am in the biotech industry and as well as in the academia for last 30 years. I have some companies which are based on biotech. But because I am a Gemini by birth, so I deal with very different kind of activities. So I have a CRO-based company, then I have a cosmetic company, and I am a scientist at the VA Medical Center and UCLA. So I wear many different hats. That's the way I think life can be enjoyed more. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Saroj, and thanks for joining. So the one last question I have for Stephanie is kind of is a combination of two. Like, how do you deal with many a times there is a lack of representation, right? Especially in an organization when it's underrepresented, with women in leadership positions. So how does that impact another leader, who wants to, go up in the career position or the aspiration, because they don't see other women, let's say, in top positions? That's one issue.
Mm-hmm.
And second is not that the organization has biases, but some of them do, in terms of perpetuating gender biases and stereotypes. So again, those are a couple of challenges which are fairly, I would say, widespread. Maybe I'm, maybe I'm saying something out of context, but how do you deal with that if you are an up-and-coming woman leader who wants to have better representation and also wants to overcome some of these biases?
Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting because I haven't got into the stats, but I looked up a bunch of stats yesterday before we had this conversation in case it came up. And just across the board, and I'm generalizing, the stats show that women in leadership are essentially driving more revenue and growth for companies. Entrepreneurial women are statistically in the last 2 years have made more growth and money in their businesses than men, yet the funding is still statistically going to the men in entrepreneurial positions and from VCs and things like that. In fact, the last 2 years, women startups have lost a massive percentage. It's gone from $1.2 billion to $800 million of the $39 million in America that's like VC money to go to startups. So I don't know what's going on there, because the stats show that women are actually doing better in growth and development with businesses when they're in leadership roles versus men. And I'm not trying to beat up on men. I'm just saying what the stats are.
Yeah.
But, there are corporate companies out there, and I'm not going to name them because, that would be whatever. But because I work with women in leadership, who are still doing really naughty things, even though the laws have been changed and women should not be being squashed and things like that. And behind closed legal doors, women are still getting paid off to go away and be quiet because men have done bad things inside organizations. And, and there are other corporate companies out there and, from other, not necessarily America, but they are in America. They're international companies who don't believe that women should rise above a certain level of leadership because they should be at home raising their children. And I'm not, and I've worked with these companies and I've spoken to HR directors and I know that that's the mentality of the companies. So my suggestion to women who are finding those places or in those places and they're difficult is leave. Go and find your tribe, go and find the company that values you and start your own revolution, because you cannot change the mindset of a corporate organization that believes that until somebody comes in and a woman steps into that role. And if the corporation doesn't believe that a woman should be in that role, then that's not going to change. It could take 50 to 100 years. But if you take your value somewhere where that tribe or that corporation or that company or that believe in you and support you and develop you and train you and give you that opportunity to spread your wings and fly, guess what? This company is probably going to knock that company off its podium at some point. The tides will shift if you find your support in your community. And the more women continue to support, really support, not just lip service, but truly support each other. And the other thing is that we need to teach our children. We need to teach our children how to treat other people and other cultures and women and things like that, because the children are the next generation of leaders.
So Stephanie, if I may just come in over there, you actually hit the nail on the head about teaching our children.
Mm-hmm.
I often say this within the Indian culture to a lot of my clients, that we need to raise our sons better, more than anything, because everything goes to the daughter about how she should do this and do this and do this work, and this chore is your responsibility and this is your deal and this, that. And so it's important that we raise our sons better or differently, if not better. Not the same old way. And the other thing is that men leaders or leaders who are men, if they are supportive, if they're supportive in their leadership roles at work, these are the same men who are typically supportive back at home. So you won't see a leader, a guy leader who is out there being very supportive towards women. You won't see his wife or partner or sister or whoever at home doing nothing or twiddling their thumbs. So it's part of your growing up and personality that takes it through. So a supportive leader is a male leader, or even a woman leader for that matter, but a supportive leader is supportive across board, at home as well as up front. And since I have Saroj over here, I want to Saroj, my apologies in advance, but I'm going to pin you down because you are also an entrepreneur. What are your thoughts? You're sitting here in a forum of women. When you recruit, do you recruit specifically with this intent in your mind that X percentage of my company needs to be women? Or what do you do?
In our case, we recently hired a person in working for our company in India. It's just the head of the department there wanted a long-term client or a long-term person who can work, and our choice was a woman. because we didn't go by like gender or these issues or that issues. In fact, mostly the women applied because they want a stable place where they can work and a long-term work they want. It's nothing to do with us. We want our production and whatever work we give them, they can do. So in that term, women were the mostly choosing us for their work. It's not we are choosing them or we are discriminating against them, you know. So
very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So another point over there is that women look for stability.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This has been a fascinating
I
conversation.
just want, sorry.
Go ahead, Ashu.
I was just going to add an interesting aspect when Saroj was talking, because I'm a recruiter, and generally we are asked by companies, especially in these senior level roles, to look for diversity candidates, and because that's the norm now. And I'm just near completion of a very interesting search where we were looking for a head of marketing and communications for a museum. And it was interesting that I had probably about 8 or 10 fantastic candidates with that expertise. And there was just one male. And he was also not from museums, but more from performing arts. And it was interesting because we added him in the mix because as I was telling my business partner, I said, hey, we need diversity. He's like, what are you talking? I'm like, I mean, we need a male now.
That'll be the day when
Yes.
we start putting them in the diversity category.
Yes. So I really had to share this because this happened literally 2 weeks back. And I'm like, I called my partner and of course it's a he. And I said, you know, we need some diversity in this mix. He's like, what do you mean? This is all diverse. I'm like, no, we need a male now. So
it's funny, Ashu, you say that because my daughter, she's up in San Francisco Bay Area. And by the way, she hosted the TEDx at her school, at University of Washington, Seattle, in her graduating year. So similar, Stephanie, that's pretty awesome when you said that. And she's an up and coming leader, at least that's what I would like to believe. But so she's joining this new company. She's going to be an environmental scientist for them. And I was bragging about that with my neighbor. And I said, you know, this company has a woman CEO and all 4 directors, you know, it's a geographical, like different areas of the country. They're all women leaders as well. So isn't this great? Like she's joining this awesome company and she looks at me and she's saying, where is the diversity in that? So there you go. It's interesting that there is some of that going on too, right? Because she's our neighbor. We love her, and you know they're great neighbors. But I always enjoy point and counterpoint when I talk to some of the folks about how they think about different situations and all that. But anyway, I had to share that, Ashu, when I heard your side of the story there. Okay. I don't know what to draw out of that, but just sharing.
Well, as someone just said, it would be nice once we reach that situation, right? Where we are looking at, and it was very interesting because as I was conducting that search, I must have reached out to at least 100 plus candidates, and I think 75 to 80% were females.
Amazing.
But we also have to kind of keep in mind that now we are in the knowledge economy, right? In the good old days, in ancient times, when we differentiated between men and women and the kind of work they could do, there was a lot of literally masculine manpower required to do certain kinds of jobs. Mm-hmm. And that's why, out of sheer protection and to keep the society intact, the differentiation the differentiation came about. But the moment we have IT and the moment we have, where the borders across the globe have diminished, women pretty much can do the same, because now we're not recruiting men to go and pick up rocks and stones, where we're saying the physique or the biology is the hindrance. And so meritocracy is something that we tend to overlook for some strange reason, and we've got into this whole gender business. Fortunately or unfortunately, but
I'll probably have to interrupt Sonnal right here, but it's almost 1:20. I think we need to take a leave from all of you. Stephanie, a huge thank you to you. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
I learned a lot from you and everybody who was present here. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better panel than this. It is recorded. It is on YouTube as well.
Please send it to me or let me know how I can find it. I thank you everybody for your input. I really enjoyed talking to you. Please reach out to me. I put my email in the chat, but Sanjay, if you want to share my LinkedIn or my email, I'm totally fine with that. Anyone can reach out to me and contact me, but I do have another meeting. So I am going to fly. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you,
Ashu.
Thank you very much,
Sanjay.
Sonnal. Who else is, everybody else who's here, Situban as well, Sukaina. So all of you, thank you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.